Hi, welcome to My Favorite Mistake. I'm your host, Mark Graben. Our guest today is CJ Stewart. He is the co-founder and chief visionary officer at the LEAD, that's LEAD, Center for Youth. So we'll learn today what that stands for and a whole lot more. CJ's first career was as a professional baseball player, drafted twice by the Chicago Cubs organization. He's also the co-owner of Diamond Directors Player Development and has built a reputation as one of the leading professional hitting instructors in the country. CJ is also author of the book Living to Lead, a story of passion, purpose, and grit. It's available now at Amazon and other booksellers. So CJ, thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm great. It is a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited to have you here. Looking forward to talking both about some lessons you learned playing baseball at a really high level and the work that you're doing with kids. But as always, we're going to jump into the key question at hand. CJ, what would you say is your favorite mistake?
Well, first, I am in a season right now where I have done several podcasts, and just I'm even at a place now where I'm just declining opportunities to do them because I kind of get asked the same questions over and over, and it's I don't know, it just hadn't been as fun. But
Yeah,
your show in particular stood out, and I'm excited about it. Talking about my favorite mistake, and
yeah,
it really forced me to put some thought into it. Mainly because I'll just kind of go quickly high level is a mistake is something that we do out of ignorance while trying to achieve a goal and have success. So,
hmm,
so mistakes is about ignorance. Opposite of that is stupidity. Stupidity is knowing the right thing to do and not doing it.
yeah.
So
I
when I
like.
was thinking, yeah, when I was thinking about that question, I was like, I know a lot of stupid things that I've done, and I have some good ones and some not so good ones, stupid stuff. But then like a mistake where it's just like, man, like a true mistake where I have done something out of ignorance
Mhm.
while trying to achieve a goal. And that my favorite mistake is becoming an avid runner.
Mm.
Uh, I run, around four major races per year here in the Atlanta area. I've yet to travel outside of Atlanta to run, but I do plan on doing that. I'm 48 years old as of today in November 2024, and by 50, I think I am going to try to run my very first marathon.
Great.
I'll do my first half marathon on Thanksgiving of 2024, but I got into it because of paying homage to the killing of Ahmaud Arbery
Hmm,
in
hmm.
Brunswick, Georgia in 2021,
Right.
2020, I'm sorry. And so now just that one race paying homage and honor to him,
Hmm.
now I'm like a real deal runner.
Yeah. So when you say so, in what way would you say that was a mistake then? Because it sounds like you haven't given up on running.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, it started out just as a mistake, but now it is definitely something that is significance for me. And so, even when I go back to stupidity, stupidity is knowing the right thing to do but not doing it.
Right.
And then the steps after stupidity is struggle. Struggle is making mistakes out of ignorance while trying to be successful. And then success is the achievement of a goal. And then significance is using your success to serve others. And so that struggle really, actually, if I don't run, because of what it has done for me mentally, emotionally, uh, physically, and
Mhm.
spiritually, if I don't run, then I'm stupid because it's
Yeah.
what I need to do to take care of myself. But now through running, I have met so many different people of varying races, socioeconomic backgrounds, religion.
Hmm.
I actually see older people in a different light. Because also too, like when I run, a lot of times I'm not the fastest runner, but I end up competing against older people and oftentimes older women, and these women are out here booking it.
Yeah.
But if I just regularly see them, in the grocery store somewhere, I'll make assumptions about them that they aren't very athletic, and many of them are beating me. So it's really opened up my eyes, and also conversations that I get a chance to use my running experience. And I'll just say lastly, and also too, running a race is very much like racism, I believe, in that when we start thinking about racism, before it's about people, it's about power, it's
Mm.
about influence, it's about affluence, it's about a starting line and a finish line. And so, African Americans in this country is losing most, if not all, races, as we can think about, whether it's healthcare, education,
Mm.
economic, and but to win these races, for me as a runner, I have to train. I have to have great resources, the right equipment. I have to have the right shoes for the right track.
Mhm.
And so, even with the program we have with Lead Center for Youth, we are helping children to win these races, and understanding that white people and white supremacy are two totally different things. Making sure they don't go through life hating white people, but it is logical to hate anything that's focused on the supremacy of one at the detriment of others.
Yeah. And think, I mean, back to mistakes versus stupidity, like out of ignorance. And that's a word that sounds so negative, but I'm trying to remember back to when I played baseball. Um, if you think a curveball's coming and it turns out to be a fastball, that's a mistake, a mental mistake, or you didn't pick up the pitch. I mean, it's just, or we start a company that you think is going to be successful and it doesn't pan out. Like, that ignorance, I think, isn't so negative as it might sound, but like there are certain things we don't know. We're making our best prediction of what's going to happen. And if it doesn't pan out, that's a mistake. That's kind of how you're framing it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the not knowing, but again, even using your example of the pitch and not knowing, we also need to make sure that we are well coached so
Mm-hmm.
that we can have a very educated guess. Even now in baseball, the analytics, you can pick up so many patterns to really understand that this is going to be the third pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And that third pitch happens to be a curveball that you don't hit very well, and you hit the fastball better. So you need not take the first pitch down the middle. You need not foul off the second pitch, which is also a fastball, and foul it off
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah,
now get the curveball and then roll over and hit a ground ball. But I would say even like in business as well too, you have to do some forecasting,
sure.
and so that way, removing yourself from making mistakes out of ignorance and also doing stupid things that can
Mm-hmm.
be detrimental.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I think in business or in other settings, we can do our best to research, forecast, do some studies, make sure we're not just taking a wild swing, but that it's sort of an intelligent guess, and it still might turn out to be wrong, as opposed to something that might be, stupid. Let's say somebody has trouble, controlling their emotions, and they're upset at a client, and they yell and scream at curse and curse at them. Like they probably, on a lot of levels, know that's the wrong thing to do, and doing it anyway would be, I guess, stupidity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and so yeah, that would be stupid. And also too, it's even further stupid if you're not emotionally in a place to actually be at work and not just taking the day off.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's also one of the things, even for me, emotionally, when I show up places and I'm not 100%, I usually start with the context of that. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm a 6 today. Here's what I got going on. I mean, I set the context even when we start this podcast. Is I'm saying no to a lot of them, but I'm saying yes to yours. So if I was on a podcast right now other than yours, I would not be full of energy. And I
Mm-hmm.
would have to tell that person because I'm tired of doing these same old podcasts. So the answer is no. But then, I don't know, even as I think now, even like, there's some questions that you could probably ask me if it's questions about racism, athletics, so on and so forth, then that's definitely in my wheelhouse.
Hmm.
If you ask me a question about the stock market, that's not. But then even if I start to try to go down that rabbit hole answering questions that I don't know the answers to, that's not a mistake if I say the wrong thing. It's stupid because I don't know and I don't care.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm not going to be asking you about that,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
yeah. But back to the most serious subject that you brought up, the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. A black man out jogging and murdered by two white men, convicted. I mean, I think stupidity. I mean, I can't, stupidity. I mean, like taking the law into your own hands and shooting somebody is something that you'd like to think people know is wrong and not something to do.
Yeah. Well, and they were, and it was a third person who actually reported it, and so he's also incarcerated. So it
Oh,
was,
that's right. That's right.
essentially he was killed by three people, and so I don't know if they used the words themselves, mistake, um, but it definitely was framed as being self defense, and they tried to
Yeah.
say all these other things and so on and so forth, and that's why the distinction between mistake and stupidity is so important because um, there's a level of mercy and grace that does need to be offered to people that are making mistakes
Hmm.
versus people that are stupid. Now, if Ahmaud Arbery had broke into their house and well, no, that's not good. All right, if I have a weapon and I have somebody in my house and I started to discharge my weapon, and out of mistake, not knowing, I don't know who it is. I'm assuming that it's somebody, and I subsequently harm a family member. I would have a defense of I'm in my home, I have a
Hmm.
weapon, I hear somebody, I made a mistake and shot them
Out of ignorance of who was there.
out of ignorance. I don't know what I don't know, but some people will go so far as to actually stage the killing of people under the guise of I was ignorant, I didn't know. And so then you got to go through a whole court proceeding. But the bottom line is there's a difference between I made a mistake and I was stupid.
Yeah, I mean, let's say those guys saw Ahmad jogging and went up and said something and accused him of being a robber. Like, that's a mistake. That's, ignorance. They didn't know. Their assumption very well could have been driven by racism.
Hmm.
Um, but then life goes on. But then, this idea of taking the law into your own hands and shooting somebody seems to go beyond the pale. If that's not a mistake to forgive, that's a criminal act. It's stupid. You should have known better. To act on whatever bad. I mean, it's just no. It's stupid. It wasn't even a bad assumption to think, oh, we can shoot somebody. Like, no.
Yeah. And then the consequences just should be accordingly, again, based on whether or not it was a mistake or whether it was stupid. And, again, as I think about, um, the mistake of me becoming an avid runner, because I wasn't planning on becoming an avid runner,
Mhm.
but now that I have become one, short of me physically not being able to do it, and I've had a lot of gains. I've gone from a triple extra large shirt to now wear a large shirt.
Mm-hmm. That's a big
My
difference. Yeah.
Yeah, my mood is a lot better. The only thing that's not getting better is that my hairline is not getting better. I still don't have any hair, but but just I don't know, just everything is so much better. And so if I stop doing these things, in fact, there are lots of mornings where I don't want to go run, or it may be raining outside,
Mhm.
or my body's a little bit tight. But I think about these races that I have coming up, and I got to run them because when I'm in them, and I'm running 13.1 mile half marathon, I got to be able to push through. And what I'm addicted to as well is I'm now addicted to the training, but I'm also just addicted to the feeling of pride when my family sees me crossing the finish line.
Hmm.
I'm addicted to that. I absolutely love it. The Atlanta Track Club also has really cool medals. Um, and I also want to be able to do a marathon and travel. I mean, I've got some
Yeah.
different countries that I want to be able to go to and take my family with me and just feel special. I want to feel special and I want to do tough things and I want to train for it.
Yeah. So maybe, I transition and talk a little bit about, your baseball aspirations and your baseball career. I know from reading your bio that at some point you decided that wasn't really the right path for you. I don't know if you feel like that was a mistake to have pursued professional baseball, or it might have been a mistake to stick with it any longer.
So it wasn't a mistake to get connected to it, but it definitely would have been a mistake to keep trying to pursue it. Because ultimately, what I now know is my calling is to me for me to be significant, serving millions, bringing them into a relationship with Jesus Christ. Started with my wife Kelly, and then our daughter Mackenzie and McKenna, and then my vehicle for doing that is through coaching, which is my earthly talent. My spiritual gifts are discernment, leadership, hospitality. And so I get a chance to live life on purpose, but it all started in 1984. I was 8 years old, born in 1976 in the inner city of Atlanta. And inner city just basically meaning you were black and you were poor if you lived there. Now, we
Mhm.
had white people in the late 70s and even beyond that worked in the inner city. And actually, we had white people that lived in the inner city as well too, and white flight because of the integration of schools
Mhm.
caused white flight across the country. And so, when I say I was born and reared in the inner city of Atlanta, that meant that I was black and I was poor. That's where I was relegated to. So much so that even today in 2024, 4 out of 5 black children in the city of Atlanta are living in concentrated poverty.
Mhm.
And so in '84, I don't remember the day. I just remember it being hot in Atlanta. And my granddad would, in the daytime, be watching Chicago Cubs baseball games.
Mhm.
Later that night, my grandmother would watch the Braves games. And in between, we would watch the news and all that stuff. But I would watch those games. Wrigley Field had um, ivy on the wall,
Right.
which I thought was kudzu because my grandparents had kudzu in their yard, so it
Yeah.
looked the same to me.
Yeah.
So I made in my mind my grandparents' backyard. I made it Wrigley Field. I would get rocks and a stick, throw them up in the air, hit them. And my favorite player was Gary Matthews Sr., the
Mm. Yep.
Sarge.
Yep.
And so my aunts told my parents that every sum every summer when I'm over there, I'm always hitting these rocks. Need to get me on an organized team. I got on an organized team at Cascade Youth Organization, which was Southwest Atlanta. So I grew up in Northwest Atlanta, which was black and poor for the most part. Southwest Atlanta was more black and middle class. So a lot of civil rights leaders lived there. Hank Aaron, the late wife of Dr. King, Coretta Scott
Mhm.
King, Ralph David, Abernathy, all of these people that I'm studying about in school would be at the field at my games, watching hundreds of black kids play baseball. So it was just a great place. I mean, it was community. Even up until that point, up until about 16 years old, when I started playing travel ball, yeah, I'd say probably about 16. I mean, I had not been in the presence of more than 10 white people in my life.
Mm.
Being black in the city of Atlanta, there was no reason, no context for that to
Mhm.
happen.
Mhm.
But travel ball opened up the opportunity. I had my first workout with the Chicago Cubs at 14. My mentor, the
Mm.
late TJ Wilson, was an Atlanta Police Department officer, and he had me with my first workout with the Cubs. Denny Pritchett was my first hitting coach, and Preston Douglas was my Cub scout. And so I worked out with them for 4 years, was
Mhm.
drafted out of high school by them, went to Georgia State University, then DeKalb, was drafted again by the Cubs, then played in the Cubs organization. And, it was a great experience, but I had a lot of technical things going for me with regard to my height,
Hmm.
my speed, my arm, all of these technical things, but I lacked a lot of the technical things, like, strong core values, like humility, integrity, loyalty. I lacked social emotional learning, strengths like social skills, self
Hmm.
management. And so it just got to a point where mentally I wasn't strong enough to keep going. My body was working,
Hmm.
but emotionally and physically and mentally I wasn't. And so all of those things that I struggled with, that I lacked, I became a coach and made sure that boys in general and black boys specifically had the things that I did not have. And to date, we've had over 40 young men that we work with as teenagers that have become major leaguers
Oh, wow.
through our for-profit business, Diamond Director. So
Yeah.
it definitely would have been stupid for me to keep trying to play when I was so far behind tactically.
Yeah. And let's thank you for sharing, about that. I mean, it's a tough road. I mean, the percentage of players in the minor leagues, the percentage of players who get drafted who do make it all the way to the top. I mean, it's this funnel that narrows pretty quickly, and it's a tough road. And I'm glad you found, like I say, your true calling, whether it's coaching hitting, coaching children. So I'd love to talk about the LEAD program, and first off, as an acronym, LEAD. Tell us what that stands for.
LEAD stands for Launch, Expose, Advise, Direct, and our mission is to empower an at-risk generation to lead and transform their city of Atlanta. And we use the methodology of sports-based youth development to help black youth. Girls use tennis, boys use baseball,
Hmm.
to help them overcome the three curveballs that threaten their success, which is crime, poverty, and racism. It was established in 2007 because one of my white clients, Stan Conway, a very wealthy white man who was in real estate development, I was training his middle school age white son, Davis, and Stan challenged me and just said, hey, listen, there's this decline, this constant decline of blacks in baseball, and you're not doing anything about it.
Right.
So, you know, I felt convicted, which is not the same as feeling guilty. If I would have felt guilty, it would have paralyzed me and I would have did nothing.
Yeah.
But I
It's more like
felt
the sense of conviction.
sense of conviction was empowering.
Yeah.
I had a sense of responsibility, and also his financial support gave us some authority and some capacity to get things done. And so we have year-round programming. We've served over 5,500 students since 2007.
Hmm.
Right now, we serve pretty close to 250 per year, partnering with Atlanta Public Schools for year-round programming that's in school and after school programming. And we have had a commitment or an investment of over $15 million in 17 years. So financially and with time, we have proven that black boys do want to play baseball. Our tennis program is very new.
Hmm.
It started in 2023. But it's an article that came out today about Mookie Betts and just talking
Yeah.
about his positioning in baseball as an African American man and how he gets overlooked in the game. And so one of the things that I called out on social media about that is prejudice is a reason. Now it's a tough pill to swallow for people to accept it being racism, but whenever there's a disenfranchisement and marginalization based on race,
Hmm.
then that's racism. Now, Major League Baseball doesn't have any policies, or college baseball doesn't have any policies that is preventing it from happening. But being an African American man and being on the ground level, I know for a fact that there are tens of thousands of kids. And then we start looking at the entire country. That's hundreds of thousands of kids that really want to play this game. Many have the ability, But the structure that currently exists with white owners, white executives, white scouts, white managers, there's a prejudice towards people that are similar and familiar to us. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of rhetoric out there that's negative about blacks in baseball. If absent of me knowing it all and absent of me having the reason, what I'm saying is like, give me a better reason, because the reason can't be that black kids don't have fathers. It, it can't be because black kids don't have baseballs. Because and I'll bring it to a close here because I can go all day long on this.
Mhm.
Baseball was invented in 1845
Yeah.
in New York. The Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1863, and then Juneteenth was 1865.
Right.
Okay. African Americans were playing baseball while enslaved. So during that period of time, until black
Mhm.
people were legally free, we were playing baseball. In 1884, Moses Fleetwood Walker became the first black man to play Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
This is 1884, and
Yeah.
Cap Anson, a white man who was arguably the best player in the league, he basically created a handshake agreement to have no blacks in the game because
Yeah.
he was racist and he didn't like Moses. So and then the Negro Leagues, which was established in 1920, barnstorming took baseball to Canada.
Mhm.
That's Freddie Freeman.
Yeah.
They also took it to Japan. That's Shohei
Yeah.
Ohtani.
Yeah.
And they took it to Latin America.
I was going to say, yeah, yeah. Oh, so many players, yeah, from Latin America now, lost decades. Yeah.
So the game wouldn't even be played in these places if it wasn't for the Negro Leagues. So just that right there, and then we're going to say black kids don't want to play baseball.
Yeah.
If they don't want to play baseball, then there must be something systemically that's being done intentionally to keep
Mhm.
them from playing.
Yeah. Because, I've been a huge baseball fan my whole life. I'm 51 years old. You mentioned 1984. For me, that was the Detroit Tigers winning the World Series when I was a kid, which was very exciting. In the Detroit area, same dynamics like you mentioned, white flight and this segregation of some very white suburbs and the city that was becoming increasingly percentage black as the white flight continued. But I think of these trends and the numbers that show there are kind of in the modern era historically low percentages of black players. But then the other thing I can't help but notice compared to back in the day, very few black catchers, fewer black pitchers than there were back in the day, and I think it maybe begs the question, is there some racism that still exists? I think of the awful things Bert Campaneris said back
Yeah.
in, I think, the late 80s, early 90s. He was general manager of the Dodgers and, disparaged black people, saying that they weren't capable of being managers, which is stupidity. It's racism. It's nonsense. Um, the NFL had a problem for the longest time of not thinking uh, black men could play quarterback, and that's changed. But I mean, what are your thoughts in baseball? Do you think black players get steered to certain positions because of quote unquote athleticism or racism, all of the
Yeah.
above?
Yeah, well, so again, just using these words, racism and athleticism. Racism, before it's about people, it's about power, it's about influence, it's about affluence, it's about financial capital and social capital. That's racism. Athleticism
Mhm.
for me is someone who's able to get things done even when they don't fundamentally know how to do it. And so, that speaks to physical and mental prowess. So, rather than somebody being called athletic and it being a four-letter word, equivalent to all the other bad four-letter words that's out there, I let kids understand that like that is high praise when somebody calls you athletic, because even when you don't fundamentally know how to hit this pitch or throw this pitch, you're still able to figure it out and make it happen. So
Mhm.
it's a word of endearment. However, it's something that has been looked at as negative and attached to our boys. And so, he who owns the definition owns the movement. I don't own a team. I don't have the power to
Mhm.
draft players, but somebody who's established in player development, I lead with the definition that I give. I do think that the catching position specifically is a position very much like a quarterback, where you are the leader on the field,
Mhm.
and so from a race standpoint, just like the quarterback position, to give up a position like catcher, and all of a sudden you have an influx of black people. Baseball is America's favorite pastime, and it really is indicative of America. And if you start putting black men in those positions of power, that's definitely gonna upset a lot of people. And I've been around, and I coach kids that right now have potential to be very good catchers.
Mhm.
Black kids.
Sure.
I've had a ton of white kids that had potential that end up becoming major league catchers. And so the black kids, what they need more than anything is not good coaching, but they need good advocacy.
Mhm.
They need somebody that's going to go before them and protect them. And that's what I commit to doing, and what we do with Lead. Protection for us means making sure you get the benefit of the doubt, respect, and trust. So if you are on track to becoming a catcher and you are moved to first base, my job is to help make sure that you got moved to first base because that's what your best use is, not
Mhm.
because you were black. And so we don't need any more good coaching. We just need
Mhm.
black people and people in general, but black men specifically, to be in positions of making sure we're talking to white leaders,
Mhm.
and making sure that they are giving our boys a fair shot, and being known as such. No, I want, when I walk into the room, people knowing that CJ is going to come in and be focused on fairness, not
Mhm.
focused on teaching the latest trend on how to hit a pitch. And then the same thing, even with pitchers. So what happens is, on the kids on the ground, at the street level, whether it's in poverty-stricken communities for black people or even in the suburbs, kids want to know that if they're going to do it, they have a good shot.
Yeah.
But I also don't want that change to be made solely because white men said, all right, now it's time for black kids to catch and be a pitcher. In order for it to be done, that's going to have to happen. But I want to go on record as a black man that's also with white men, making sure our black boys receive permission
Right.
to be great. Does
Yeah.
that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. And I just did a quick search. I mean, there's ripple effects, I think, going through catching because I don't know the exact percentage of major league managers who played catcher, but it's pretty high because, like you said, the catcher understands elements of the game as a field leader. You understand pitching, hitting. You understand. So a lot of them become managers, and they're currently in Major League Baseball. You think of the progression. As of the beginning of 2024, only two black managers in Major League Baseball, and only one black general manager. And if we go above that, team presence. I know, like in NFL history, Jason Wright, who's a fellow Northwestern University graduate. I remember watching him play football. He's the president of um, the Washington Commanders. And so back different sport, but even coming back to baseball, those opportunities currently are few and far between, and something's got to help change that pipeline. Would you agree? Or what else needs to be done?
Okay, well, I think what needs to be done is the words. So your show is the favorite mistake, and we're talking about the difference between mistakes and stupidity. And it's either racism or prejudice. I mean, race prejudice probably feels better, but we got to start with conviction and really calling out things for what it is. You because what's stupid is trying to spend money to change the problem, with a lot of these efforts in baseball being more public relation than development. So it's like, even for you, if you wanted to make your podcast the number one podcast in the world, uh, that's a problem that can be solved with money. But then there's some politics and some things that's got to be done to properly position you, so that money isn't wasted nor time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, people talk about the financial costs, which is like so stupid. Like, it, like, like black people don't have money. Like, it's the reason why black kids don't play baseball because it's expensive. Like even if we just look at the economy of America with respect, and I don't have the numbers, but if you look at how much money poor people spend, of which, there's because there are more white people in America, there's a large number of white people that are receiving subsidies in America than anybody, but they're all races are receiving support. But even with people that are receiving subsidies, they still spend money, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it,
Yeah.
probably more than wealthy people. So anyway, so black people do have money, and so we go straight to that, and it's just really stupid. And I hate when it's said, when we look at the decline. But we also got to look at the emotional cost of being black and playing baseball, but also the emotional cost of being black trying to start a podcast, trying to be a chef, trying to be a doctor, trying to be the president of the United States. All of these things are, and even the Center for Disease and Control has racism as a mental health issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, I didn't become openly black until 2015. I went
What,
through
what,
I went through a,
what do you mean by? I mean, yeah. What do you mean by that? Like you came out of the black closet? No, I mean, no. What do you mean?
I I
Yeah.
had been you love that. I had been code switching
Uh,
and
mm,
trying to
mm,
act white
mm.
for so many years, and it's tiring because
Gotcha.
before you go into the meeting, here's how I talk, here's how I act, and then I go into the meeting, and then I got to talk a different way, and then I got to come out of the meeting. And if you go into a whole day of meetings like that, I mean, it's hard to even gain yourself, and then and so now, like, I'm wearing what I'm wearing, and I talk the way I talk because this is me. And what would be stupid is for me to put myself in places where I can't be me.
Ah, mhm.
So there are places that I don't go to today because I can't go and be me. And there are people that don't ask me to be on their podcast because I am who I am. But I have a level of freedom
Mhm.
that is for sure going to allow me to live a longer and fulfilling life.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I mean, so with that being said, you got a lot of black boys, let's just say 5 years old. They're looking at TV and they see Mookie Betts on TV, and like, oh my God, that's what I want to be. I want to be
Yeah.
like Mookie Betts. And then all of a sudden they get older and they're playing baseball, and now they're on a 14U team, and they're the only black on the team,
Mm.
and maybe they're competing with somebody for the same position, and then their white teammate calls them the N word.
Mm.
Up until this point, he's not been called the N word. And so now you got parents that's telling him about it, but you got the parents that won't call out the coach because they don't want the kid to lose his spot. Because if he loses his spot, then he may not get a college scholarship or get drafted. And so the kid is learning how to deal with being mistreated and
Mhm.
disrespected to accomplish a goal. And then all of a sudden, the kid makes it to the major leagues.
Yeah.
And he's still called the N word, and he's still hanging his head low. And then the thing that's more damning about that kid who grows up to be that guy is he has a child himself, and he teaches his child how to do that.
Mm. Yeah.
And then somebody like me who would call it out, then I end up looking like the bad guy because this other black guy over here doesn't call it out. And
Yeah.
so, so in order for these things to change, I mean, we have to have a conversation about racism, and we
Mhm.
have to have a conversation about prejudice.
Yeah. And it's difficult, but it's either a mistake not to have those conversations or it's stupid. I don't know. Where
It,
would you land
it's
on that? Or
it's
does it depend?
stupid.
It's
Yeah,
stupid.
it's stupid. Like, and what's stupid again is it's just it's stupid. I mean, it's just like if I'm having chest pains and it and then I let a day go by, a week go by, and it's increasingly, it's increasing in pain. And then I decide not to go to the hospital. And you know what? I'll make it even personal. Like I got a colonoscopy for the first time this year.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons why I didn't want to get a colonoscopy is because I did not want to be revealed in the procedure that I had cancer,
Mm-hmm.
which I have a clean bill of health.
Good.
Everything's great. But I was dealing with the fear of having to deal with the facts.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact could be something detrimental. So it was stupid all these years for me not to get the colonoscopy done. And if I don't get it, and then I end up dying because I had a preventable form of
Right.
cancer,
Right.
I would
Or
have died
treatable.
stupid.
Yeah. Right.
Treatable,
Yeah.
I would have died stupid.
Yeah.
So, again, it's one of them things where if you're Major League Baseball, with the history that's involved in baseball and blacks being a part of it since the beginning, and when we look at the amount of money that black people spend in our economy and recognizing that if you allow more blacks to be in the game, you can make more money because black people have money as well too.
Mhm.
But to then do efforts to increase the number of black players and the numbers keep declining. You're spending more money to do things for black kids to be in baseball, and that's unacceptable because Major League Baseball teams don't spend more money to then have ticket sales decline.
Mhm. Well, I mean, it seems like I don't know the details of it. MLB at least touts that they have programs to get um, black kids playing baseball, poor kids playing baseball. But are those? I mean, are those token efforts? Are they not proving successful? Do they need to try other approaches?
They have great programs. The issue is not the
Mhm.
programs.
Okay.
The issue is the advocacy, because once you get black players that are playing again, and you have black players that are in these programs that are not showing up openly black, they are showing up giving 150%, which is stupid. You can only give 100%. They're doing way more than they need to be doing, wasting mental, emotional, physical energy, only to still not be drafted,
Yeah.
still not get a college scholarship. And then people in the community see all the things that you did and it didn't work. And then, people just say, all right, I'm not going to waste my time. And then you have kids that will not want to be coached by somebody as accomplished as me because I'm black,
Mm.
and rather go outside of their community with a coach that's white. I know that for sure because it has happened to me, but I also did it. I mean, I said no to black coaches when I was growing up because I just was not convinced that they would be able to advocate for me and have the power needed to make sure I got the benefit of the doubt, respect, and trust. And so all of these things just become cyclical.
Yeah.
But again, a solution to them is naming the problem and saying we have an issue with racism
Yeah.
and or prejudice, and and well, if you do it in baseball, then that definitely, again, baseball being a microcosm of the world.
Right.
But if we were having a situation where there, I mean, with COVID-19,
Mhm.
you have that as a problem, and trying to solve it, you got to start with it's a problem.
You got to name it. You got to define the problem. You have to recognize that it exists.
You can't just say, and you can't just say that it exists, not get a vaccine, and just say it's just something that'll go away.
Yeah.
it's not going to just go away. You're not going to increase the number of blacks in baseball unless, and then just a success story of that would be Tim Corbin, who's a friend of mine. He's the head coach at Vanderbilt University, and he has several African American players that come and play for him. And he publicly says, "Come here, I will protect you, and I will make you better."
Mm-hmm. That's great.
And in fact, he just the number one player in the 2027 class, I think. Keon Johnson, I think he's 2027, African American player out of Macon, Georgia, phenomenal. He just committed to Vanderbilt, bypassing several other schools to go there because he knows that Tim Corbin, as a white man, past having good coaching, he's going to protect you.
Yeah. Well, it's great to hear. And CJ, thank you for sharing your stories, your experiences, your insights here. Important topics, and thank you for your advocacy and everything you're doing to help kids and helping scale to help others in other communities help kids. So again, our guest today, CJ Stewart. I will make sure there are links in the show notes to his website, to his organization, to his book. Again, the book is titled Living to Lead, A Story of Passion, Purpose, and Grit. So CJ, I hope you would agree here after about 45 minutes that it was neither a mistake nor stupid to come on here and have the conversation today.
Yeah, it was, and this was absolutely great. And then I also have a blog that I'm gonna finalize because this was the first time I've ever been a podcast guest, and had to get my thoughts together. And as I was getting them together, I said I might as well write a blog about that. So I'll share that with
Yes.
you as well about my favorite mistake.
Okay. Well, that make sure that's in the show notes as well. So CJ, thank you again. Certainly from my side, not a mistake to have you here. I'm glad you joined us. Thanks again.
My pleasure. Thank you.